Las Vegas. 2009. A 50-something in a sequined tailcoat lands a perfect quickstep on live television. The studio erupts, and millions at home watch a face they first screamed for in 1972 lift the Mirrorball trophy. Donny Osmond, former teen idol, former has-been, has just won Dancing with the Stars. It feels like a plot twist written by destiny, but rewind the reel and the arc is harsher. In the late 1970s, he and his siblings owned American Pop. By the mid-1980s, his squeaky clean brand made him unbookable. Radio programmers wouldn't touch him. Record deals vanished, and the money, spent on arenas, TV variety, and a machine built for mania, ran thin. Then came the panic, crippling stage fright and anxiety that sent a born showman into therapy just to stand under a spotlight again. He fought back on Broadway, rebuilt in Branson, and, with Sister Marie, turned a 2-month tryout into a decade-long, sold-out Las Vegas residency. The kid from Puppy Love had to learn reinvention the hard way. What does it cost to stay wholesome in a business that rewards scandal? And how did a man once dismissed as terminally uncool become one of entertainment's most durable survivors? Donald Clark Osmond was born on December 9, 1957, in Ogden, Utah, the seventh of 9 children in the devoutly Mormon Osmond family. His parents, George Verl Osmond Sr. and Olive Osmond, raised their children in a home where faith, discipline, and music intertwined. George, a World War II veteran turned postman, was strict but visionary. Olive, nurturing yet ambitious, spotted the talent in her children early and encouraged them to sing. The Osmond household was vibrant and chaotic, 9 kids under one roof, each expected to pitch in. Music became the family glue. The older brothers, Alan, Wayne, Merrill, and Jay, formed a barbershop quartet in the late 1950s. They performed locally, then caught the eye of Disneyland talent scouts, which led to TV appearances. By the time Donny was 5, the Osmonds were already edging toward national exposure. Donny stood out almost immediately. With his bright eyes, sweet voice, and natural stage presence, he was groomed as the breakout star. George and Olive nurtured him but also pushed him hard. Rehearsals were relentless, and the expectation to succeed was heavy. Unlike many child performers, Donny had the safety net of siblings sharing the spotlight, but he also felt the pressure to live up to the family name. The Osmonds' Mormon faith shaped every part of their identity. They avoided the typical pitfalls of show business: no drugs, no scandals, and projected a clean-cut image that set them apart from the rebellious rock culture of the 1960s and 70s. For Donny, this dual identity, both wholesome family boy and emerging teen idol, would become both his blessing and his burden. Childhood for Donny was not ordinary. Between tours, TV studios, and screaming fans, school became secondary. Yet at home, he was still one of 9, expected to do chores and honor his parents' rules. This grounding helped him navigate fame without self-destruction, but it also laid the groundwork for later struggles: how to be himself when the world demanded perfection. The Osmond family story was one of discipline, devotion, and dreams. For Donny, it was the crucible that would make him a star, and eventually test his resilience when the spotlight faded. Donny Osmond's education unfolded less in classrooms and more under studio lights. While his peers in Ogden, Utah, sat in schoolyards, Donny was rehearsing harmonies with his older brothers or traveling to television sets. Tutors accompanied the Osmond children on the road, but the real curriculum was show business, timing, discipline, and learning how to charm an audience. By the age of 5, Donny had joined his brothers on The Andy Williams Show. With his cherubic face and effortless stage presence, he quickly became a standout. Millions of American families tuned in weekly, watching the wholesome Mormon kids in matching suits deliver barbershop harmonies. Donny's solo spot, often a novelty number or a sweet ballad, revealed that he had more than just a cute smile. He had star quality. As the Osmonds' popularity grew through the late 1960s, Donny matured into a bona fide teen idol. His breakout came in 1971 with the solo single, Sweet and Innocent, which hit the top 10. A year later, his cover of Puppy Love sent teenage girls into hysterics. Echoing the frenzy once reserved for Elvis or the Beatles, fan clubs sprouted everywhere, magazines plastered his face on their covers, and concert halls shook with the screams of thousands of young admirers. Balancing schoolwork with this tidal wave of fame was nearly impossible. Donny often studied backstage or on flights between shows, but his real lessons were in handling fame, how to smile through exhaustion, stay polite to reporters, and remember choreography while the crowd drowned out the music. His parents and faith provided structure, but the relentless pace made normal life a distant dream. By the early 1970s, Donny was not just a member of the Osmonds, he was the centerpiece. His solo career thrived alongside the family's success, creating a dual image, Donny the teen heartthrob and Donny the clean-cut family boy. It was a delicate balance, and one that would become increasingly hard to maintain as trends in music and culture shifted. For now, though, Donny Osmond was living the dream of every American teenager, except it was a dream so big it threatened to consume him. By the early 1970s, Donny Osmond was more than just the youngest face in a family band. He was the centerpiece of a cultural wave. The Osmonds had transformed from a barbershop novelty act into full-fledged pop stars. And Donny's solo career only amplified the mania. With his cherubic looks, slick choreography, and innocent charm, he became the embodiment of the American teen idol. The Osmonds themselves enjoyed chart success with hits like One Bad Apple, 1970, which soared to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. They followed with a string of pop rock singles that positioned them as the wholesome alternative to the rebellious rock of the era. Their appeal lay in their family image, clean-cut, smiling siblings who sang in harmony, toured together, and embodied traditional values. But it was Donny who stole the spotlight. His 1972 solo single, Puppy Love, originally a Paul Anka song, turned him into a household name. Teenage girls fainted at concerts, shrieked outside hotels, and filled stadiums with a frenzy not seen since Beatlemania. Donny was just 14, yet he was being marketed as both innocent enough for parents to approve and dreamy enough for teenagers to adore. The solo hits kept coming: Go Away Little Girl, Young Love, and Sweet and Innocent. His face graced the covers of Tiger Beat and 16 magazine, while television appearances cemented his clean-cut brand. For years, he was America's favorite son, polite, religious, and scandal-free. Then came the Donny and Marie show. In 1976, Donny teamed up with his sister Marie for a variety program that aired on ABC. With comedy sketches, musical numbers, and guest stars, Donny and Marie captured the family-friendly vibe of the 1970s. Their chemistry, sibling banter, and signature closing line, "And May Tomorrow Be a Perfect Day," made the show a hit. For 4 years, the duo dominated primetime television, extending Donny's reach beyond music into mainstream entertainment. By the late 1970s, Donny Osmond had become one of the most recognizable entertainers in America. He had achieved what most performers only dream of: chart-topping singles, screaming fans, a hit television show, and a reputation untarnished by scandal. But his very strength, wholesome innocence, was also a trap. As musical tastes shifted toward disco, punk, and edgier rock, Donny's clean image became a liability. Critics dismissed him as lightweight, and radio programmers increasingly refused to play his records. The teen idol who once couldn't walk through an airport without being mobbed was, by the dawn of the 1980s, in danger of being irrelevant. Still, the breakthrough years of the 1970s had secured his place in pop culture history. Donny Osmond wasn't just a singer, he was a symbol of an era, a reminder of when family acts could rule the charts. When variety shows glued families to TV screens, and when teenage innocence could sell millions of records, he had soared higher than most performers ever would. But what goes up must come down. And for Donny, the fall from teen idol to uncool would prove brutal, and nearly career-ending. While Donny Osmond's career was often played out in the glare of spotlights and screaming fans, his personal life was a study in contrast, quiet, grounded, and remarkably stable for a man who grew up as a global teen idol. From the earliest days of his fame, Donny made clear that family and faith came before Hollywood's temptations, and his love story reflected that conviction. In 1978, at just 20 years old, Donny married his childhood sweetheart Debbie Glenn, a former cheerleader from Provo, Utah. The wedding shocked some of his fanbase. At the height of Osmond mania, Donny's management worried marriage might tarnish his image as the eternally available teen heartthrob. Indeed, some fans reacted with outrage, letters poured in, concerts saw protest signs, and record sales even dipped as the illusion of Donny as boyfriend shattered. Still, Donny stood firm. Debbie was the love of his life, and fame would not dictate his happiness. The couple went on to have 5 sons, building a bustling household that mirrored Donny's own upbringing in a large Mormon family. Despite constant touring and showbiz demands, Donny worked to keep his family insulated from the chaos. They lived primarily in Utah, away from Hollywood, where the Osmonds' Mormon faith anchored their daily lives. Donny often spoke about how Debbie's steady presence saved him during his most difficult years, particularly when his career waned in the 1980s and he battled crippling anxiety. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Donny's personal life remained largely scandal-free. While tabloids occasionally fabricated rumors, affairs, secret troubles, supposed divorces, none were true. Donny and Debbie endured, even as the entertainment industry shifted and his relevance dipped. Their marriage became a rare example of Hollywood longevity, lasting decades in an industry notorious for short-lived unions. Still, being Donny Osmond's wife was not without challenges. Debbie often stayed in the background, avoiding media, but she dealt with the fallout of fan backlash and the pressures of raising a family while her husband lived much of his life in public. Donny later acknowledged that his perfectionist image sometimes created unfair expectations, not only for himself but also for those closest to him. By the 1990s and 2000s, as Donny reinvented himself on Broadway and in Las Vegas, Debbie remained his rock. Their sons occasionally joined him on stage or in media appearances, though the Osmonds tried to shield them from the pitfalls of child fame. To Donny, fatherhood and marriage were more than personal blessings. They were a second chance to give his kids the stability he sometimes lacked during his own chaotic youth. In an entertainment landscape fueled by scandal, Donny Osmond's marriage became almost radical in its simplicity. Where others stumbled through divorces and controversies, he built a lifelong partnership that weathered the storms of fame. Today, Donny often credits Debbie with keeping him grounded, reminding fans that behind the sequins and spotlights is a man who has always cherished home above all. For Donny Osmond, the early 1980s marked a sharp and painful descent from the glittering heights of teen stardom. The very qualities that had once made him a superstar, his wholesome image, family-friendly persona, and clean-cut looks, suddenly became liabilities in an industry racing toward edgier sounds and rebellious icons. Disco was giving way to new wave, punk, and hard rock. The cultural tide had turned, and Donny Osmond, once America's golden boy, was dismissed as hopelessly uncool. The collapse was swift. Record sales plummeted. Radio stations refused to play his songs, labeling him irrelevant. Concert venues that had once overflowed with screaming teenage girls now struggled to sell tickets. To the public, he had become a relic of a bygone era, frozen in the bubblegum innocence of puppy love. Donny later admitted that he was mocked even within the industry. The name, Donny Osmond, had become shorthand for outdated cheesiness. Financially, the decline was devastating. The Osmonds had invested heavily during their peak years, pouring money into elaborate stage productions and a television empire. But with revenues drying up, debts mounted. By the mid-1980s, Donny was grappling not only with fading fame but also with the reality of financial strain. For a man who had once seemed untouchable, the fall was humiliating. Worse still, Donny began to experience crippling anxiety and panic attacks. Once a natural showman, he suddenly found himself paralyzed by fear before performances. Stage fright, an affliction he had never known as a child star, now threatened to end his career completely. At its worst, he described feeling unable to breathe under the spotlight, his mind racing with the terror that audiences were judging him not as a performer but as a punchline. Desperate to shake off his goody two-shoes image, Donny attempted comebacks that flopped. He dabbled in different musical styles, trying to modernize his sound, but nothing stuck. Critics sneered, and fans from his teen idol days had largely moved on. He was caught in a limbo, too wholesome for the rebellious pop scene, too irrelevant for a new generation. The nadir came in the mid-1980s when his career seemed virtually dead. Once worth millions, Donny faced the prospect of starting over in obscurity. Offers dwindled, and he seriously considered walking away from entertainment altogether. Yet, behind the scenes, he battled not just for his career but for his identity. Who was Donny Osmond without the screaming fans? The chart-topping singles, the boy next door image that no longer fit a grown man? This period became his crucible. Therapy helped him confront the anxiety that nearly ended his performing career. Faith and family steadied him when the industry would not. And slowly, Donny began to envision a reinvention, not as a boy idol but as an entertainer capable of evolving with time. The scandal of Donny Osmond's life was not drugs, affairs, or tabloid meltdowns, but something quieter: the stigma of irrelevance. The cruelty of being branded a has-been at 25, and the invisible war of mental health struggles in an industry that devours its young. For Donny, this downfall was as destructive as any public controversy. It robbed him of confidence, fortune, and the sense of belonging he had known since childhood. But as history would later show, Donny Osmond was not finished. Out of the ashes of humiliation and panic came a long, grueling climb back to respectability, a comeback that few believed possible, and one that would, in time, redefine his legacy. By the late 1980s, Donny Osmond seemed destined to fade into the trivia of pop culture, a once beloved teen idol remembered only for puppy love and variety show reruns. Yet, against all odds, his downfall became the foundation of an unlikely renaissance. The road back was long, humbling, and often uncertain, but it ultimately revealed Donny's resilience. The first glimmers of revival came in 1989 with the release of Soldier of Love. Ironically, the single was initially distributed to radio stations without Donny's name attached. Programmers, who had long dismissed him as irrelevant, began spinning the track purely on merit. Once the song climbed the charts and listeners demanded to know the voice behind it, the industry had to face the truth: Donny Osmond was back. The single reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, a stunning reversal of fortune. For a moment, the uncool teen idol was reborn as a credible pop star. But it wasn't just music that fueled his comeback. In the early 1990s, Donny took a bold risk, stepping into the world of musical theater. Cast as the lead in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, he donned the multicolored robe and sang his way through more than 2,000 performances across North America. Critics, once his harshest enemies, praised his charisma and stamina. Theater audiences, less concerned with pop coolness, embraced him wholeheartedly. The role ran for 6 years, restoring Donny's confidence and proving that he could succeed outside the bubble of Osmond mania. In 1998, Donny and his sister Marie reunited for a Las Vegas residency. What was initially a 6-week engagement stretched into an extraordinary 11-year run at the Flamingo Hotel. The Donny and Marie show became a staple of the Strip, combining nostalgia with professional polish. Night after night, they performed for sold-out crowds, many of whom had grown up with their music and were eager to relive it live. The residency not only revitalized Donny's finances but also cemented his status as a seasoned entertainer capable of thriving in any era. Television offered another boost. Donny hosted game shows like Pyramid and became a familiar face on reality competitions. The pinnacle came in 2009, when he joined Dancing with the Stars. Week after week, Donny charmed audiences with his humor and determination, ultimately winning the Mirrorball Trophy. The victory introduced him to a new generation, many of whom had never heard of his early teen idol days. Through it all, Donny's personal steadiness was his secret weapon. With Debbie by his side and his family anchoring him, he avoided the destructive patterns that had ruined so many of his peers. Instead of scandal, his narrative became one of survival and transformation. By the 2010s, Donny Osmond had pulled off what few in show business ever manage, a second act. He was no longer just a relic of the 1970s. He was a Broadway star, a Las Vegas headliner, a pop comeback story, and a television personality who had reinvented himself multiple times. The boy once dismissed as too clean to last had proven that integrity, perseverance, and adaptability could outshine even the harshest labels. Donny Osmond was no longer a punchline. He was an institution. Today, Donny Osmond is no longer the wide-eyed teen idol of the 1970s, nor the desperate comeback story of the 1980s. He stands as one of entertainment's rare survivors, a man who weathered irrelevance, financial strain, and crippling anxiety to reclaim his place as a respected performer. In recent years, Donny has continued to reinvent himself. After closing his record-breaking Las Vegas residency with Marie in 2019, he launched a solo residency at Harrah's Las Vegas in 2021, proving that even after decades in the business, he could still draw sellout crowds. His setlist spans every era of his career, from Puppy Love to Soldier of Love to Broadway showstoppers, interwoven with personal stories that resonate with audiences who have followed him across generations. Offstage, Donny remains deeply connected to his family. He and Debbie have been married for more than 4 decades, raising 5 sons and enjoying the joys of grandparenthood. He often credits his faith and family as the true anchors of his life, helping him navigate the peaks and valleys of fame. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Donny avoided the scandals that so often define celebrity narratives. His downfall was cultural, not moral, a battle against being forgotten rather than disgraced. Critics who once mocked him as uncool now see him as a symbol of endurance. Younger artists cite him as proof that reinvention is possible, that a career written off at 25 can still blossom into something rich and lasting. Fans, both old and new, celebrate him not just for the hits but for the humility, humor, and humanity he brings to every performance. As Donny himself often says, he has lived many lives in show business: child star, teen idol, has-been, comeback kid, and seasoned entertainer. Which of those versions will define his legacy is still an open question. But perhaps that's the point. Donny Osmond's story is less about a single moment than about the ability to survive change, to endure doubt, and to keep performing long after the spotlight was supposed to go dark.